This is Sunday, April 19th, 2015, and I'm Nancy Raynor, volunteer with the First Presbyterian Church Oral History Team. And today I'm talking with Julene McPhaul. And our focus is her membership in the Bettie Penick Bible class. And this was a class founded in 1915, but it no longer exists today. Welcome, Julene.
Thank you.
How long have you been a member of First Presbyterian Church?
We've been a member since 1967.
You have a history.
48 years.
Yeah, you have a history with this, with our church. Who was the senior minister?
Dr. Edwards, and Dr. McPhaul was the assistant, and they made a great team.
And who were any other senior ministers along the way that you recall?
Before Dr. Stock came, we had some interim preachers. I do not remember their names. And then when he retired in the late 90s, we had an interim or two. Short-term people came and preached, but Dr. Ed McPhaul came, so we still have him. And we usually, when we get people, we try to keep them.
And that's a good reputation to have, I think. Was there a specific event or some person or activity that attracted you to the First Presbyterian Church?
I was raised a Baptist, and when we were first married, we attended a Baptist church here in Raleigh. Albert was never really happy. His heart is Presbyterian, and he had friends here. He wanted to visit, so we did, and we stayed. And I was expecting our second child, so I knew I couldn't be active in several months to come. But he came on and joined the Vanguard class, and I did join the Bettie Penick class at that time. And when I walked in their door, I was home. It felt like home. I was several years younger than most of the ladies, but age didn't seem to have any problem with them or me, and I stayed, and it was a wonderful time. Really,
that's a real blessing for you and for your husband. Tell us a little bit about the history of that class.
The Bettie Penick class. Now, Miss Penick never taught that particular class, Bettie Penick Bible class, but she did establish classes all through those years that led up to the class that we're talking about. She was born in 1843 and evidently spent all of her growing up life in this church. She and her sister, as far as I can find history about them, lived here in Raleigh. And she was very interested in her young life in foreign missions. And at that time, in 1896, it was a worldwide organization. It seemed to be a lot of the churches were very interested in foreign missions, and they wanted the children to understand how important it was. So they started classes to teach them. And she, in 1896, she established a Busy Bee Band Society. I hadn't figured out what the word band means. I get busy bee, I don't get band. But anyway, it was young people, and they were very busy and active in foreign missions. That led to a class of young people that was called Philathia. And those classes with that same name, as I said, were worldwide. And she had young women, a little older. That class became known as Philathia, Bettie Penick. And then, after Miss Penick died, she never married. Miss Penick, her sister was married, but she never married. She died in 1915, and that was when the class named itself Bettie Penick Bible Class in her memory. So that's how we came into being.
That's an interesting history. She had a lot of vision, didn't she?
She did. And the women those young women, there were 18 women left in that class when she passed away.
Wow. You said it felt like home when when first time you went into the class. Talk about that just a little bit more. What was that like?
It's hard to describe. I'm sure you've been in groups that when you went in, it was a feeling of love, warmth. Everyone was friendly, and immediately you were relaxed. You wanted to stay, and that was exactly the feeling I had. I visited other classes, but this one was just different. I had some friends in there who were the wives of my husband's friends in Vanguard, and that made it very easy. But I think it would have been the same even if I had not known them, because the women were so gracious, and facial expressions were so pleasant, always. And I can still today, when I think about them, I can see them. And as I was going through this, getting ready for this interview, I could see the faces of so many and where they sat in the class. And it's been, the loss of that class has been very hard for me.
How long were you a member of the class?
40 years.
Wow, that's quite a long history. That's great that you could be with that class that long.
I enjoyed every minute of it.
How many members all told were on the roll? Do you remember?
When I joined, I have those cards, and we had 66 on the list. They began to dwindle. Age, bad health. We did not gain a lot of new members as time went on. Maybe our gray hair scared the younger people away. But the group was very closely connected with one another and had been for years. And they were very close. And I think that kept us from growing in number. We would add one or two, but not a big group. So we began to dwindle. And by the 90s, we were about half that. And our average attendance was about, well, in the beginning, we had 3/4 of our enrollment would be there on Sunday morning. But we were down to about 25 to 30. And then we kept getting smaller and smaller.
And so it would vary over the years, the average attendance, then, you're saying. Okay. Well, did you have class officers?
Oh, yes. We had our president, our vice president, treasurer, assistant treasurer, our secretary. Miss Nell Harding was our secretary for years, and if you know her, Miss Nell kept tabs on all of us. And as she aged, she said, "Please sit in your regular seats so that I will know you're here." And I don't know what was said, but I moved around. I had not been used to sitting in one seat. And I said something, but she replied, "I can tell by your hairdo." But that was Nell. Yeah. And we had our treasurer, our assistant treasurer. And we also have several different committees. So, I mean, we were well organized. I'm sorry to tell you that we didn't keep very good records, but we were organized.
Well, that's good. That's good. Who were some of the teachers while you were a member?
We used our class members who would teach. We had several of us. And then we had invited people in the church to come and teach. We had some gentlemen that came. Houston Black taught. Fred Morrison taught. Fred actually became a permanent teacher later in the 90s. And then in the classroom, Ms. Presley, Ms. Worth, Ms. Wendell, Ms. Morrison, Ms. Helen Morrison, Dot Smith, Helen Smith, and myself. I taught for years. I started teaching in the late 70s, and I taught until it was over.
Well, was it strictly lecture, or did you all discuss things?
It was mostly, we used the standard Sunday school lessons that are distributed by the church.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone did, even the visiting guest teachers. And it was mostly lecture. That was the type they wanted. Occasionally we had some discussion, depending on the lesson subject.
It sounded like you all enjoyed being with each other as well as hearing those lessons. And I guess that it really encouraged all of you to stay in the class.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
I don't recall anyone ever leaving until near the end when we had so few people.
And you had, that was sort of like a special church family of your own.
Yes.
That's great. You know, the First Presbyterian Church's mission is serving Christ from the heart of the city to the ends of the earth with love, faith, and action. And you mentioned some projects that the Bettie Penick class probably focused on during your time when you were a member. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those projects on serving others?
Actually, it came, I think our missions concern and projects came from Miss Penick. I think it was a handed down because she was so interested in foreign missions. And our class was too. But they did not like giving to large organizations where they didn't know where the money was going. They wanted to know. So we actually sent money directly to missionaries in Korea. And we sent money to build chapels, 2 or 3 that we sent money for. And we also sent money for to pay for health care in a leprosy colony that was over there that Elizabeth Swindell knew the missionary that was there. And then we supported the church projects and local projects within the city. After Miss Penick died in 1920, we had Ms. Follis, and I think that's the way you would pronounce her name. She taught the class for a long time, and they established that's our first scholarship to help pay for a lady to attend the training school in Richmond, Virginia. And then that went on for several long years. And then we established the Peace College Scholarship that they had done that, I believe, before I came to the class. But it continued until we disbanded. And actually some of us paid it on for a couple of years. So we did that. And that was our 2 scholarships. Now, we always sent an offering to Barham Springs in the fall for clothing for the children. That was another project that we had. So, and anytime the church needed something, even though our age kept us from going and actually participating, we usually donated something. So we were involved.
Sounds like it. You busy people. This is kind of a personal question, but I know that you were in this class, you said 40 years. And how did that influence your overall Christian journey, do you think?
These ladies, it had a great influence. I had always taught children. They were my first experience teaching adults. And I can tell you that the first lesson, I prayed all the way from the house to the church. Just helped me do my best because I had never taught Bible lesson to adults. And everything must have gone well because I continued teaching. But these Christian ladies were my mentors. They were my friends. And they did a lot for my own spiritual growth. They meant a lot to me. Olive Worth insisted that I go to the Presbyterian women meetings. And I'm glad I did because today I can tell you that I'm a past moderator. I am an honorary life member. And I teach Bible. I'm a Bible teacher, so I've been there all these years because of this class. I might not have done it if it hadn't been for this class. So yes, they've had a great effect on me.
That's such a good example of how being with others, Christian women in this case, have influenced bringing out the best in you. And you shared that with being a member of PW. And I know even today, I can certainly testify that you are such a benefit to us, and we appreciate that. All right, let's go a little bit more into the history of this class. Now, what caused it to disband?
Well, age, poor health, and frankly, death. And at that time, I had to think about that question. At that time, it was not really popular to divide the men and the women in Sunday school classes. The younger married people wanted to go to class together. So we organized more couples classes. The Vanguard was still the only men's class, and Bettie Penick was the only women's class. Foursquare had already gone. They were invited to go to join the Vanguard class. We were invited, but we voted no. Even though we were smaller, we would stay as we were. I was raised in a Sunday school where we divided after we were grown. They had the adult women and the adult men. We did not have couples classes. So I wasn't used to it, and Elbert wasn't either. And sometimes it's just easier to teach your own sex. I mean, that may sound odd, but it really isn't. You can discuss things that a little bit self-conscious in mixed group, I think. Well,
and what year did it cease to meet?
I have trouble with that, and I think it's because, you see, by 2004, we only had about 6 active members. We had several inactive. And we began to have 6, 4, 5 very small groups that got there on Sunday morning. And it's either 2006 or 2007 that I finally gave up. I wanted to go to 100 so badly. And I cleaned out the desk and put all the songbooks away and closed the door. And it was a sad day for me.
I'm sure it was.
And it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But you have such a history with First Presbyterian Church. Do you recall significant changes over the years in the church as a whole? I mean, you mentioned the couples class thing becoming more popular. What were some other things that you recall?
Well, we began to enlarge our building, our facilities. One of the first enlargements that we did, we bought the property where the grocery store was, and remodeled that and moved our offices into that building and some Sunday school classes. Then we had more space in the original building to use for a nursery and other classes. We built Memorial Hall and a new kitchen, brought the kitchen up out of the basement because the kitchen was in the basement for years. And then we were on television for a while. And so we had to make space in the attic to put the camera and do some changing around in our sanctuary. Then we we bought the green property and built the stock building that we're in right now. And we enlarged the parking lot. We built a columbarium that I don't think there's another one in town. There may be, but ours is beautiful. And we redecorated the parlors during this time. That front portion of the church, Bettie Penick was part of, our room was part of the parlor system. And when there was anything happening, we shared our room with them. So we remodeled both of those. We remodeled the kitchen, the little kitchen there. And that restroom was the bride's dressing room. And so we also remodeled all of that. Our outreach in the city has grown significantly. Oh, it really has. We, at one time, were dispensing our sandwiches and food out of the lobby in the grocery building. And now you see what we have is a very big organized outreach program. So there's been a lot of changes. We've grown.
What about the youth program? Do you think that's changed a lot too?
I don't know much about the youth program because our girls are grown. And there was not a lot of change in the youth program during their growing up years. We always had a youth director, but it has changed and it has grown. But I do not know the specifics of it. I'm sorry. I can't answer that one.
What about the music? Did the music change at all?
We have beautiful music, and it has. We've had organists that were so talented. Virginia was an outstanding organist, and the gentleman we have now is at Covington.
Craig.
He is good, very, very good, and Covington's our choral director.
That's right.
So, yes, we've added the bells. We didn't have that to begin with. And we did have the children's choir. Both my girls sang in the children's choir. And it has grown as we've grown, yes. There are more organizations and more departments than we had then. So I think it's great. I just can't be specific on that.
Well, that's quite all right. I mean, you're certainly giving us lots of. Well, you gave us a really good visit to the past, and you brought us up to the current thing. Can you think of anything else you'd like to share with us at this point?
Well, I want you to know that these Christian women that I spent 40 years with had a very delightful Christian life. We played together as well as studied together and spent church time together. Every summer we had a picnic and invited our husbands, and it was at Peace College. And at Christmas time, we met somewhere for a Christmas lunch, special places that we would choose, different each year. And we were always the guests of the Vanguard class for their Christmas dinner. And it was, they were just very special in every way of life. It's hard to describe. I wish they could all come in. You would enjoy it. You would enjoy visiting with them. They were very happy. They were very busy in their own lifestyle, in their homes, and in their communities. We were scattered all over Raleigh and Wake County. So I don't want you to feel that they just met at church and never were together at other times, because they were. They were together often with different occasions. And they were leaders in this church in about every project. Also, the first female deacon came from our class. That was Dot Smith. And so it's been an interesting 40 years and a delightful 40 years. And I have been, honestly, I've been lost since 2007. There just isn't any place I can find that I quite fit without, I think about them.
It's quite a sisterhood.
It was.
Well, you just really given us such great information, and I really appreciate you coming and being a part of this oral history project that we're into, and it's going to be our delight to put you as part of the archives of that. Thank you so much, Julene.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.